Well, the 1000th Formula One event, was it a non-event? Shouldn't say that, shouldn't jest, I suppose. It was, of course, not the 1000th Grand Prix. For more of that, I've made a few notes on monogatowatches.com, so have a look at my latest column there, The Racer's Edge, explaining why actually we should be celebrating at Monza this year, and I've got some ideas of how we can do that. Liberty, take note. But looking at China, I think the biggest, two things. Lewis, as predicted, the minute he's not on the pole, as we saw in Bahrain, always going to make good starts, having got that glitch in Australia out of his system. Another brilliant start, took the lead, led from start to finish. Perfect day's work, actually. Just faultless performance from Lewis Hamilton. Very easy to take it for granted, makes it look so easy, a little bit like Nigel back in 92 with the 14B. People just said, oh, well, you know, he was going to win in the best car. But he's got to beat Valtteri Bottas for a start. And there was a lot of strategy coming in, a lot of time management. Full marks, 100%. 100 out of 100 for Mercedes. We've given them a bit of a hard time over the years, I think, for strategy. But to bring both drivers in for a stacked pit stop, under pressure, a little bit of pressure from Ferrari, who'd sort of scattered their strategy to try and do something, and a big call from Mercedes to do that. I'm not sure that Toto would have endorsed that had Valtteri been in front of Lewis, because imagine if there'd been a glitch on, if in that case, if Valtteri was in front in the Valtteri pit stop and Lewis had just been sitting there waiting. Not the sort of thing you'd want to contemplate. Equally, you wouldn't want to contemplate that anyway, even with what they were doing. And stacked pit stops are always slightly pressurized, but brilliant. I thought that was really good. A lot of people would say, and a lot of my buddies who come away from China saying, what a boring race, another boring race. But you know, for me, that little touch there was what made the race, really. That and Sergio Perez passing a few cars on the outside into turn one, that was nice to see. But just to finish with Lewis, it's difficult to overstate his performance, and because Valtteri was on it, you know, that's a Valtteri Bottas circuit, and it's not a track, as I said in the last video, where there's a great corner where a Lewis can do something slightly better than a Valtteri, or where a Charles Leclerc can show up Sebastian Vettel. It was always, to me, China's a very disappointing circuit in some ways, because there's some great corners, but there aren't any long straights following those great corners. So there's nothing there to penalise you if you don't get it quite right, or indeed to give you a reward if you get it perfect, as there is at turn 9-10 at Bahrain with that long straight afterwards, which is why I keep going on about that section of road. You could argue turn 1 is a great corner because it's increasing radius and you're braking with load on the car, which is always a nice thing. But you get it wrong, what do? You just have a little bit of understeer at the end, you just come out of the throttle a bit, you haven't lost a lot of time, then you just got all that jink to the left. And turn, whatever it is, that very quick left-hander, about 4 corners after there, is a nice corner, but again, a very short straight afterwards, so it doesn't really mean much. And it just, to me, it's a bit of a nothing circuit. So a little bit like Russia in that respect, I think. Oh, Sochi. So for Lewis to beat Valtteri on that sort of track was no mean feat, and he did so because he made the better start. You know, if Valtteri had won the start, who knows how it would have gone. And I guess you've got to say that about Ferrari. They lost qualifying, and that's a real mystery. They didn't get the front row, and then as a result, they easily lost the race. Now, whether or not they would have lost the race that easily had they started one car at least on the front row, or both cars on the front row, I guess we'll never know. We don't know yet. Well, I think we do know that these cars are just as bad in turbulence as any cars we've seen over the last decade, and last winter's work was a complete and utter waste of time and money. But that's another issue, on the assumption that it is very, very difficult to overtake, except in the DRS zones, and we know all that stuff. You know, the mystery of China for me is why Ferrari weren't as quick as they should have been. We know that they're quite a low downforce car now, in the sense that they are quick aerodynamically on the straight, possibly power-wise too, but I don't know. China to me looked as if there was absolute parity between Ferrari and Mercedes on power. So if Ferrari have sacrificed a little bit of inherent downforce to gain some top speed over the winter, then I guess you could say that would show up quite a lot in China, where there are all these medium speed corners, which don't amount to much in terms of what follows, but they are important corners where you just need massive grip going in, and maybe that's where Mercedes had the edge in China. And if that's the case, that's pretty bad news for Ferrari, because there are a lot of circuits like that coming up. In fact, the bulk of the Formula One World Championship is based around circuits of that sort of character. So yeah, there are some super slow ones which would nullify everything, and probably the agility of the Ferrari will be good at Baku, and it'll probably be good at Monaco. Spain, though, you got to say, on the basis of China, that, you know, it's difficult to imagine the Mercs being slow up through turn 3 there, certainly 9, and generally getting the pole, and once you got the pole in Barcelona, end of story. So yeah, I think, you know, a friend of mine who works for Ferrari actually just sent me obviously will remain nameless, sent me a text last night saying, you know, wow, our worst start to the season in a long time. But who would have thought that, given the way they went into the Australian Grand Prix? And we know how quick that car is overall. So it's kind of bizarre that it has been such, in terms of results, it's not a great one for Ferrari. But to me, that car is still a good one, and I think we're going to see them winning races. It's an easy thing to say that. It's a rather abstract thing to say, but I can't imagine they're not going to win Monaco for a start. And as I say, you know, they might be looking quite good in Baku. I think Charles Leclerc will be worth watching in Baku, that is for sure. Remember what happened 2 years ago with when he was racing in the GP2 race, and he lost his father just before Baku, and he went to Baku nonetheless, and he won the feature race, and he almost won the sprint race. And that's how good Charles Leclerc is around Baku. So watch this space for that. Really looking forward to seeing him there. It was another good day for Charles, I thought, because we saw obviously he was not happy at all about having to let Sebastian pass in the early stage of the race. And I think that was a function of, I know what I'm doing in my tyres, I know the pace I should be driving. If he wants to go quicker, you know, that's his problem, because he's going to have a problem with tyres. But anyway, he did it, and he did the correct thing. You know, he followed instructions, and he let Sebastian pass. And then I thought a lovely bit of the race was when he was out there, stuck out there, hung out to dry on the white tyres, the hard tyre, and how well he drove at that stage of the race. Obviously, he was losing ground, and he was there at that point. He was playing the spoiler for Ferrari, but nonetheless, very, very good to watch. And another very good drive, I thought, by Leclerc. I'm not sure if he's ever been to China before, probably not. But then again, you know, a driver of that quality is going to learn a circuit in about 6 laps, so it doesn't make much difference anyway. Sebastian Vettel, yeah, I mean, on that sort of circuit, as I said, he was never going to be slower than Leclerc around China. There's no place where he wouldn't be at least as good as Leclerc, maybe slightly better in a couple of areas. But again, we saw this sort of rather irascible, fractious race weekend from him. And yeah, a podium finish, so there's that. But equally, not totally convincing. And I think a lot of the Ferrari fans out there are saying, you know, when will Sebastian make yet another mistake? And it's going to be an interesting year, I think, watching a fun year, actually, in a year when potentially it looks as if we could be looking at yet another Mercedes championship. The fun part of this year is going to be watching Sebastian throwing his toys out of the pram as the year progresses, because Charles Leclerc will not go away. That is for sure.